some bad shit, man.
It'll get you dancing.
No.
Damn. Damn, that was good.
Those some funky boys.
I know I was supposed to like, fade out, but I couldn't.
You can't turn off the funk. Uh,
Was it Eric Marienthal on one of those solos? The first
it
one?
was Eric. Yeah, it was Eric. He's just unstoppable force.
He didn't
You,
play the second one though, did he?
no, that was him the whole way, and he just has a way of taking just a pretty simple funk groove,
Yeah.
but bringing his sensibility as a also his understanding of bebop to that genre as well. So even though he's got the kind of sound, got the smooth jazz kind of sound, he also brings his understanding of Charlie Parker and Cannonball and those guys into how he plays on that solo. And we do that thing live. It's usually our opening number, and he just sets the whole house on fire. Of course, not to mention also the rhythm section in the Big Phat Band.
I know, man.
Just killing that groove, and Ray Breaker on the drums, Kevin Axt on the bass, and it's Andrew Sinowick on guitar, and Joey DeLeon on percussion. And I just ride the wave with those guys. Count it off and hang on.
Totally, man. It's just
Yeah.
so solid and smoking. Yeah. And the last time I saw you guys, it was in Catalina's last year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, it seems longer ago now.
It seems forever. Last night I did a gig.
Ago.
3 hours seemed like 6 hours in a good way, but it was like,
in a good way. Yeah. We did a couple of gigs with the Little Phat Band last week. We did a drive-in movie theater in Ventura,
really?
and they fixed it up as a big old stage with video monitors, and it was just a celebration for us. Just to be out there again, even though the audience, they're all in their cars, around the stage. So we finished the song, and they're like, honking their horns, a little bizarre, but it was oxygen for us.
Yeah.
Able to actually play again and play together, and they were, we were fairly distant.
Yeah.
It wasn't a full big band. It was a 10-piece version we have. And so we, it's, I don't know, you get up there, like I was doing some shtick on the microphone, and I'm talking, and I said, and then one of the songs we played was called Misplaced Optimism. And I said, so, hey, Eric, what's your idea of misplaced optimism? And I hold the mic out to him, and he kind of backs up. And I realized, oh yeah, I just spoke into this microphone here. Have a little of my saliva.
That was the misplaced optimism, right?
Yeah. Wayne Bertrand had a good one. I go, what's your idea? He goes, it's no worse than the flu. That's my idea. 2020. How bad could it get?
I'd like to think that. I harbor that feeling, but who knows? But I do harbor that feeling, I admit. Although people yell at me for that, but
yeah. I can remember putting a post on Facebook end of 2019 saying, man, personally, let's turn the page. I've had enough of this year. But let's look forward. And little do we know, it was like 2 months later, it all came crashing down. So Kobe Bryant, January 20th, I think, or 25th, right in there. That happened. He's an athlete. I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
But I know his accomplishments. I know his work ethic. I know kind of how he put his life together, and there's inspiration from that. Yeah. And I was surprised how that affected me, but that was wiped off our consciousness not too long after that, when we all got embroiled in the whole COVID thing. So
it's really interesting. It's really interesting. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like, I mean, I have opinions, and I have, I listen and watch and look at all sides, because there's a lot of people who seemingly know what they're talking about saying this, and then somebody else who seemingly knows what they're talking about over here. So I like to look at everything, but I think I have the feeling like whatever will be also, and I have a kind of an underlying, I bet you do too, an underlying hopefulness, and
Yeah, I do.
positiveness. Yeah.
I do. And that's been an operating thing for me and my music, frankly.
Yeah.
Just kind of an optimism
Yeah.
and some positivity that I think informs the music I write, whether it's whatever style. It's funk music, like that's a big party song we just heard, essentially, But even the stuff I write that's a little more moody or contemplative, it still has that optimism, That's and I'm lucky it's embedded in me. I haven't had a lot of. All of us have our bumps in our road in life, but I've had a great life. I've just had so many things, wonderful things happen to me. The fact that I could have a life in music, just start with that. I mean, how it doesn't get much better than that. With all the problems, with all the economic, inequities,
Yeah.
and all the issues that we deal with as artists, and especially as jazz artists. But even all that stuff, what better life is it? And that's maybe one of the hardest things about the COVID is that was like ripped out from under us. The fact that we can't get on stage in front of an audience and do what we do. Never mind that we can't get paid to do it, but take that aside. The fact that we aren't able to play and do what we were put here to do is a big adjustment for many of us, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And new things are coming out of it, and doesn't seem quite fast enough, but I do see new things coming out of it. I mean, it almost, well, it's not really, but there's something about the loss of CDs, and that, like, how the careers were going, like, why make 1,000 CDs? You know what I mean? From
Do I ever?
But
it begs the question. Why are we? Because then they started to say, well, no one buys music, so you just have to go and do gigs, and then people will sometimes buy your product at the gigs. That became the thing, and now we can't even do that. I tried, for this last record, the tune you just played was from our latest record, the Gordian Knot, and I tried this. I said, okay, let's market this flash drive.
yeah.
A little 2 gigabyte flash drive, and it has all the record, and it's got all the artwork, and then when you're done, you got 2 pictures on it, whatever else you want, And I thought this would be a thing, and it was like,
Really?
people were like, I mean, when it was the only version available, and we sold some then, but then after that, it just sat there. So then we released the CD version, but even this, live gigs, it did okay, but Amazon and all this stuff, it sold way less than what we used to do.
Yeah.
Certain, So then we released this version, which is like a vinyl, and it's a double record, because you only get 20 minutes aside, and I had 80 minutes of music or something.
Yeah.
So these things, as you may remember, are expensive to produce.
Yeah.
This thing, it costs maybe $25 to produce them, manufacture them.
Wow.
So what about, I got to sell it for what? 40 bucks. I don't know what we sell it for.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a lot of money. So then of course I can't get enough punishment. So then we released this, which is a Blu-ray, but this is mixed in Dolby Atmos. And
Wow.
so it's a real amazing experience. We mixed it in a room that had maybe 30 speakers all in the ceiling and all around us, and it really is immersive, is the right word.
Huh.
It's, you hear things like they took me in and pitched it to me, and they said, we want to play you a record we mixed in this format so you can check it out. And they said, we remixed a Miles Davis record. I go, oh, okay. What's it called? They go, it's called Kind of Blue. I said, you remixed Kind of Blue in Dolby? He goes, yeah. So I was worried, but he hits play, and I heard things I'd never heard before. And let's face it, we've heard that record thousands of times.
Yeah.
And because of the space, and he didn't get gimmicky with it.
Yeah.
He wasn't panning things all around or whatever, because basically Kind of Blue was a 3-track master. So he just kind of did this with it, split it a little bit. So it still kind of had that intimate thing. But I'm listening to Freddie Freeloader and Wynton Kelly's playing his piano solo, and I've heard it a billion times. And I have a picture of it in my mind of it being kind of mid-rangey, kind of a dark sounding piano. But in this format, it punches. All of a sudden, he's articulating in a more impactful way than on any of the. I've got Kind of Blue on CD and 2 versions on the vinyl, and all of a sudden, I hear nuance that I never heard before. Wow. It was unbelievable. So we decided to mix this, this project, and a big band is a great medium for surround sound, and immersive. Once again, though, this damn thing probably costs $40. It's 2 discs. It's got a CD and so we're not making our money back on any of this. So that it begs the question: you got a business and you're selling widgets, and your widgets cost you way more than you can possibly ever. Why would you keep doing it? This is like our 9th or 10th record. Why do we keep? What's the matter with us? And I guess the answer is there are reasons to do things besides money.
Yeah.
There are, and for us, recording and producing music is the engine that keeps the brand alive, if you want to use that term. So here we go. Here we just keep at it, and of course there's streaming and that whole problem. I don't know. I mean, there are people that like Maria Schneider is someone who's really done a lot of research and is very eloquent in terms of talking about the problems of entities like YouTube and Spotify, and how hard she fights to keep her music off of YouTube. And I never chose to go that way. I know some people will go and try to, if people post the track and they try to, take it down. And YouTube, I don't know if they're still doing this, but they would put a little sad, like they'd leave the link up there and say, sorry, this track is not available due to a copyright claim from Gordon Goodwin. And they put a little sad face. So your fans are going, well, whatever. Anyway, so we're in a bit of a slog right now, but on the other hand, none of it matters, because we still get to make music, and that's life affirming for me.
Well, what you just said, I mean, that's not a brand new problem for musicians to think about, right? About this what you're just describing, and it's, unfortunately, I wish we didn't really have this problem. It's like we want music, we want to put it out there, we want to share it, we want people to hear us, we want people to know the music and have it, but we also need to have an income. And so where is there's something in there that I think hasn't emerged yet, and maybe this time period, I keep thinking we'll have something emerge, but who knows? I'm not really sure. But I mean, I know I've talked to other people who have kept their music off of Spotify, for instance, and in the end, they've actually put it on.
Right.
And so I guess it just didn't work for they thought about it. They wanted it to be, real clean. And I produce something, you buy it, and my friend Roland is on, he said he still buys CDs, as a way of supporting musicians, which is cool. And there are people like that, maybe not a lot. And for me, I would probably throw out the CDs in my garage if I didn't go to Japan. But Japan, I always sell 50 to 100 CDs when I go on these little trips that I go on. So I'll keep them,
Isn't that interesting that in that country and in countries in Europe, they do have a desire to possess the music.
Yeah.
That they have ownership of this, which used to be the case, here in the US.
Yeah.
Now we just know it's going to be online whenever we want it at the touch of a button. I just did a segment. I have a radio show I do on KJazz, and I just recorded a segment for it where I was talking about the value of intellectual property and how I believe it's been diluted. For instance, we just got back. We went down to Mexico and just took a little break. And so I was noticing that, and this isn't revolutionary, but there's music everywhere. It's just at the touch of a button. And we're on this catamaran and we're seeing these beautiful sights, but they're pumping out this pop music, and it was just, for me, I wanted to just take in the beauty.
Yeah.
And I'm being assaulted by the pop music. And so I know, okay, great. This is an old guy talking about this, but yet I think what happens is, since music is just everywhere and we can pick up our phones and go click, click and hear exactly what we want, it's devalued the experience. And so think about if you lived in Mozart's time, in the late 1700s, and you wanted to hear music, you have two choices. You either learn to play the piano, get a piano, learn to play it yourself, like they did, or you get in your horse and buggy and you go down to town and try to find a string quartet, or you go to a concert. You've got to earn the music. You've got to seek it out. And to think of what music sounded like to those people if they hear it once a week or once a month. Think about it. It must have been just magic to them. And I think it would be that way to us if it wasn't just always there. And it's in every restaurant. It's in every store you go into. And I know the psychology. I know these businesses want to fill the space with the energy of music and to convey the illusion of activity and energy and life in their business. That's why ASCAP will charge a restaurant to play music. Obviously. For me, it's just if I want to go to dinner with somebody and have a conversation, it's kind of hard to have to talk over the music. Here I am, this is an old guy opinion, but screw it. I think that we've really devalued the magic of it by the accessibility of it. So and I think, interestingly, to continue the analogy a little bit more, the way we get information is also devalued, because when we were in college, if I didn't know the range of the E flat alto clarinet, I got to go to the library and I've got to find the thing and look it up and then copy it and write it down and earn the information. And now I can just go range. It takes me 5 seconds? Oh yeah, okay, right. Then I write the thing, and then that information is in and out of my head before I'm done with it.
Yeah. Right.
And so I remember when I was just out of college, I was studying arranging with Alf Clausen. And Alf, as you all know, did the music for The Simpsons for the better part of 20 years. Back then, he was working on that Bruce Willis show, Moonlighting, a few other shows. He was starting his career. He was teaching me big band writing, and he wanted me to learn these modes as a means for horizontal line writing, as opposed to writing vertically like I was doing at the time. So he goes, here are these modes. And I go, okay. And it was a long list. I go, can I just go make a copy? He goes, no, write it out right now. Copy the modes out with your hand. And I'm thinking, well, that's a pain. He goes, Gordon, by doing this, you are going to internalize the information in a way that you won't if you just go copy it. And he knew back then the value of earning the information. And so it's a fascinating thing to consider for our kids who have never grown up without the concept of a cell phone in their pocket, and how they will process information as they grow up, how they will retain their understanding of the world and information. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how that's going to play out. I also know that that Einstein said something, that memorizing and holding in your head any information that you can just look up is a waste of brain power. He said something like that, paraphrasing. So I see both sides of the issue, but But I think that somehow we have to get around to some level of musical education in terms of the public's awareness of the value of it.
Yeah.
And maybe COVID is the time for this to happen, as people are in such pain, and people are sacrificing in many ways, and music is truly medicine for people, which is why, you know, shows like yours and efforts that musicians have taken to do live concerts online as a replacement for playing gigs is so very valuable.
Yeah. You know, last night I did a gig. I did a jam session, and it was so nice. The environment is really nice. It's an outdoor patio. The food is excellent. The owner is like a throwback to the old school club owner who actually pays you and feeds you, and, you know, that kind of guy. And people were so happy to be out. There was a number of people, a few, maybe, I don't know, at least 150 or 200 people out there. And it was real laid back. And what was interesting, and now I'm thinking about it, and at the time it bothered me a little, but now I would handle it a little differently. I happened to be talking with the owner, and a waiter came up, and we were on a break, and he said, "Oh, can we turn the music on?" And the owner said, "Yeah, right over there, go turn the music on." So he went and he turned the music on. And previously, I think it was actually the week before, because I had a gig there the week before, there was no music in between the sets, and my ears were so happy. It was like,
yeah,
quiet. And then the music came back, and it was like a whole beautiful experience, you know? And when the music was turned on last night, it was like this, you know, not cacophony, but, you know, it was this constant filling up of your ear, you know? And it was like, it's not necessary. You don't have to be entertained every single second, you know? You can entertain yourself, you know?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm gonna put that in my rider. From now on, no music is played as people are going into the theater or into the club. No music.
Yeah.
Our music is first thing that they hear. Maybe we could come up with some sort of a loop or something that is not music exactly, but kind of helps fill the sound and build the suspense or something. That's a worthy topic, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Hey, I want to read a few comments because we're getting some. So first of all, Roland wanted to know, how do you listen to that format at home? I think the last format that you were talking about.
Oh yeah, the Dolby Atmos. Well, here's the thing that's impressive about it. Okay, backing up. The Big Phat Band, our first 4 records that we released, we signed with a company that did surround sound mixes. And the reason that the guy signed us was the head guy was an ex-trombone player in high school. He was a band geek. And he heard the Big Phat Band. And we weren't even a band then. We just had our first record. We hadn't done a live gig, and I didn't know what. I thought it was just going to be one record, one and done. But he goes, "I love this stuff. We're going to sign these guys." And everybody else in their labels goes, "Why? What are we going to do with this stuff?" He goes, "I don't care. We got to get it out there." So this one guy, his name was John Trickett, and he said, "We're also going to remix this in surround sound." So that was 5.1. So you had 5 speakers, 3 in the front, 2 in the back. So you basically assign the parts, you know, to each speaker, so it's point sourced. You can hear the trumpets coming of it there. You can hear, you know, something back there from each speaker. The Dolby Atmos is not point sourced. It's a lot more just immersive. You can kind of hear an area where the trumpets are. But the magic about it is, typically if you're mixing a flute, a little flute part, and there's a brass section happening at the same time, you probably wouldn't write that, because the brass are going to obliterate the flute in an acoustic environment or on a mixed environment, in a stereo mix. But not with immersive. You can throw the flute back here somewhere, and it coexists with a loud brass section. It opens up so many possibilities. Wow. Now, have good that is with surround sound back in the day. I would take my surround sound DVD and I would take it to my friend's house. He goes, I got a great system. We put it in and it would sound terrible. Like its trombone's really too loud out of one speaker. And it was like so inconsistent. And it had to do with however the consumer had his system set up and attenuated and everything, changed the sound of the mix. And there was no quality control over that. It sounded great in the studio, but then I would take it out to these other areas and it was always frustrating. But this has an algorithm that will intuit your system's capabilities. So if you have 3 speakers or 5 or 10, it replicates our mix that we did in the studio. I will get quickly in over my head if I try to explain it technically much further than that, but that really gave me confidence. So like in our system upstairs here, we have 3 speakers. And basically the way, and you play it on a Blu-ray player, and the Blu-ray player has a color-coded system. I don't know if you can kind of see it, if this is too bright.
Yeah.
You can see those colors there, red, yellow, green, and blue. And those colors are also on your remote. So you press yellow, in this case, you press red, you get 5.1 DTS, HDMA, 48K, blah, blah, blah. You press yellow, you get 2.0 PCM stereo, 96 kilohertz. Press green for Dolby Atmos. So all you got to do is do that, and that your Blu-ray player will know what to do. So that really made a big difference for me, and thinking that this would be a format that you didn't have to go and buy a super expensive multi-channel, multi-speaker system for it to sound really good.
Yeah. Okay.
I hope I answered this question the best I could.
Yes, you did. And here we go. So let's see. Lots of people saying hi, 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 hi.
Hi.
Unfortunately, Marian Nalipa, unfortunately, the arts have suffered this question for 1,000 years or more.
That's true.
Will Brahms says hi. Scott Whitfield says hi. Lois Gilbert.
Hey, Scott.
Ed Bennett.
Ed Bennett?
He said, hey, Gordon, it's been a long time since Cal State Northridge.
Oh, it has. I got a good story about Ed Bennett, because we were doing a jam session. And Ed Bennett is a fantastic bass player. And we were doing a jam session at a guy's house, and we're playing whatever song it was. And then it gets to the bass solo, and everyone the drums get really soft. And he goes, hey guys, keep playing. And we said, well, yeah, but he goes, how would you feel if everybody just stopped playing during your solo? I said, well, I guess, so, and I think his point was, obviously the bass has a projection issue. If you're not playing with an amplifier, even with an amplifier, it's in a register, it's a little harder to hear. So you have to be able to play the right stuff. But I think that the thing that he was talking about was, even if you're playing softly, play with intention.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking to students about it, and I'll say, so you can play your instrument fortissimo, and you can play it and like this. Yeah, but you can play it like this, even though you're really soft. You're playing with authority, and that's it seems to be like an analogy they understand, that they can transfer to the instrument. That even if you're playing softly, you have the same breath support, you have the same commitment, and I first became aware of that at that jam session with Ed Bennett back in the day.
See that, Ed? Man, that's nice, isn't it? Okay, let's see. And Tony Jones, I went to a fancy restaurant that was playing ambient music. I noticed that it was on instant replay. Oh God. And mentioned that to the waiter. The next time I went back there, it was still doing that and no one changed it. Well, yeah. I've told people, even in Japan, I've said, could you turn the music down, because I'm a musician and I can't eat. And they've looked at me and gone and changed it. Amazing. I grew up being a liner note geek, desire for knowledge and appreciation of the evolution of artists and the possibilities that exist has fallen away to the tweet. That's so true. My husband has a big record collection, and a lot of people want to keep their records because it's a real havingness, you can really.
I know. And she's so right, because think about how much time we spent looking at that information, memorizing the liner notes. And now, of course, there'll be a song of a band that I like, but I didn't know the name because I never see it. Whereas I'm seeing the names right here on the record, and I'm looking at it as I hear the music. Yeah, that's a really excellent point. You remember when we used to go on a Friday night and we would go to a friend's house and just put a record on and lay on the floor and just listen to the music?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the boyfriend I had, I won't mention who he was. He was a bass player. Before my husband, my second husband, we used to actually lie on the floor in the dark and listen to records. And it was great. It was insanely great.
Yeah, it's meditative, really.
Yeah, and you hear stuff. You know?
I know. Think about that. I don't want to be a hypocrite because I'm like sadly a multitasker now. I kind of feel the pressure of time. Like I want to do this, got to get this done, you know? Yeah. And I hope it's not like Gershwin, you know, because Gershwin had that same urgency. And Ira was kind of like laid back, whatever, man. He goes, no, we got to get this, got to get it done. Of course, he had a tumor in his head. It's almost like he knew, you know. And again, I talked a little bit to Michael Feinstein, who's like he worked for Ira Gershwin, you know, for many years, and has some great, amazing stories. And he kind of confirmed that was the way it was with George Gershwin. He just, I got to get this done. I got to go. And I've been kind of that way. When you pop out a couple of kids, then your life changes, because then you are having to make an impossible choice. Do I go home and work on my composition that I'm excited about, or do I go to my daughter's dance recital? Right. And so, and then, you know, at some point you realize, well, she's not always going to be 6. There won't always be dance recitals, and she's not always going to want to have me around, you know, especially when she gets 14. so then it becomes a balancing act. And for me, it's always been that, though, because since I played piano since I was in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I played saxophone since I was in 7th grade, and then flute and clarinet, and then got in college at Northridge, and then I started studying conducting and orchestration, and then after that, get out of school, and I mean, I learned how to compose with this technology.
Yeah.
And it never crashed, you know, and I never had to upgrade it. But then I started to notice that all of a sudden, guys have computers and a bunch of gear. And I remember I was in Hans Zimmer's studio, and I'm looking around. There's not a pencil to be found, and there's not even a flat tabletop surface anywhere. I go, these guys don't write anything down. They just play and type into the computer. They program. And I realized, I got something I got to do now. So now I had to buy the gear. I had to learn it, you know. So now I will say that I'm a better composer. I'm surrounded by computers and stuff here. I'm better now because of this technology than I was with my pencil. So, but I think you evolve or die.
Yeah.
You know, you definitely. I mean, you're sitting here, you got your studio going, and you're running it, and I think with COVID, musicians now, they're buying microphones, they're buying, you know, the interfaces, they're learning how to record themselves at home.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like you said, I don't think that's going anywhere. Even once we get rid of the virus, whenever that's going to happen, I think the ability to communicate, you know, through the internet and record and share. I'm actually directing a band called the World Jazz Orchestra right now, and it's made up of musicians from all over the world, no more than 2 musicians from any one country. And we're getting ready to record a song, and they're all going to do it at their own homes. Then they're going to shoot video, and then we're going to cut it together. That would not have been possible a very short time ago.
Or we wouldn't really thought of it even.
No. So geography is no longer, you know, the determining thing, you know, for who we play music with. So that's pretty great when you think about it.
Yeah.
Now there are some things we have to do to try to simulate the kind of interaction that you and I would get if we were playing a
Yeah.
tune together.
Yeah.
And we'd feed off one another, and the music would change and evolve because of that. And we don't quite have that yet, but the technology, to my understanding, is evolving so that simultaneous playing and conversation can work on the internet, and hopefully, with not too long from now, we'll be able to have that capability.
That's pretty fascinating. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's got to happen. It's actually got to happen. I have a question from Taylor Hatch. First and foremost, you're one of my inspirations as a composer and arranger. Knowing your background at Cal State Northridge, can you talk about how much of an influence working with Joel Leach was to you? And on top of that, how is working with George Stone, my mentor, while at Northridge and beyond, influenced you as an arranger? Good question.
Yeah, they're good questions. And Joel was such a great advocate for me when I was in the A band as a freshman.
Yeah.
Which I considered a pretty good accomplishment. But I also was undergoing a lot of trauma at the time as a musician, because right before I started college, I took an alto sax lesson with Phil Woods. And Phil had moved to LA, and he was staying with a friend, and he was teaching, and he gave a saxophone lesson to John Yoakum, who you might remember from Northridge. He was still active in the music business, a great player. And John had an amazing lesson with Phil. And he called me and said, "Hey, Gordon, Phil's in town and he's teaching. You should call him." So Phil Woods is my idol. So I called him up, left a message. He called me back. I'm in my parents' house. I'm standing in the hallway on my landline and talking to him. And I okay, yeah, and I drove out to Studio City, or Calabasas, wherever I think he was in Calabasas. And I do this lesson with Phil, and in short, he hated me. He was disgusted with me.
Oh.
He was horrified. He was like, "What? Stop, man!" I'm just kind of playing. He goes, "No, stop." He goes, "Man, you got to get your shit together before you come to me." Now, I had just finished playing at the Monterey Jazz Festival as a high school kid. I made the A band at Northridge. I'm about to start school the next week, and I'm thinking, I'm on my way. Here we go. And Phil Woods, my idol, tells me that I suck. So he goes, "You're going to study with Vic." He goes, "Vic." And this other guy walks in the room. He goes, give Vic your horn." So I hand my saxophone to this guy, Vic, and he goes, "Horn's okay." Hands it back to me. So Phil just gets up and leaves. So Vic goes, "Okay, kid, here's what you got to do. Because your embouchure, I don't know who taught you that. I don't know what mouthpiece that is. I don't know what that ligature. What are you doing? How could you play that terrible stuff?" I go, "No one told me." He goes, "Look, your embouchure, I had my lower lip curved over my teeth, I guess, and I was choking the reed, so the reed wasn't vibrating very well, right?" He goes, "You got to roll your lip out like this, and then put the mouthpiece on like that, so you have a pad for the reed." He goes, "Go ahead, try it. Play a low B flat." So I'm like, honk, I sound like a beginner. Honk. I'm trying to control this, and I see Phil Woods in the kitchen, and he's like this. He's like going. So I am in the process of trying to relearn an embouchure, and I got to go to the A band like a week later and play and try to fit in with these amazing musicians, including Ed Bennett. So and Joel knew what I was going through, and he gave me some slack, gave me a couple weeks to kind of work that through, and then he started to encourage me to write charts for the band. And there were some much better writers in the band than I at the time, or Glenn Garrett amongst others, and Rich Aronson. But he played my charts, and he continued to encourage me to play my charts. He, I think, affected my understanding of ensemble unity, because he insisted that we phrase together. He insisted that we breathe together and that we listen to each other and we cut off at the same time. It was a discipline. It was a culture that he had. He also liked fast tempos, which I think influenced my choice of tempos over the years. I have I've kind of settled into my tempos a little bit over the years, because my metabolism back then and now a little bit was kind of fast internally. So I'd be like, here we go. This feels good, right? 1, 2. And then later I'd listen to it and go, wow, that's kind of frantic.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, maybe it's this, maybe it's here. And so I would have talks with my drummers, like Bernie Dressel and then now Ray Brinker. And I said, look, man, sometimes my count offs will be this. I'll go, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I'll self-correct in the middle of my count off, because I know my adrenaline might be influencing my tempo. And also I had 4 years of Joel loving the fast tempos, you know, so, but having said that, Joel and I have remained close friends over the years. And the other thing that I got from Cal State Northridge was that it broadened my musical palette. I came into Northridge as a jazz snob, and I hated pop music, and I didn't really like classical music. And they said, well, you're going to study Mozart, and you're going to study Debussy and Tchaikovsky and Stravinsky. You're going to study orchestration, and you're going to study counterpoint. Sorry, there's no jazz major for you back in the 70s. So I studied all that stuff, and I wouldn't be doing films if I didn't know that stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. And at the same time, I was playing in a band in a club at night, and we were playing rock and roll and the Beatles and Michael Jackson and stuff. So at night, I'm playing in this band, and we'd play from 9 to 1 down in Montebello. And I get done at 1, I drive back to Northridge and get home at 2:15, fall into bed at 2:30, and get up for an 8 o'clock counterpoint class. So when you're young, you can kind of pull that off, you know. So because of that experience, it really widened my musical point of view, so that I love Count Basie, but I also love Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah. I just have to say one quick thing. Maybe that's where I first met you, in Montebello. At that time, I was going out for, I don't know why, I was listening to some funk rock, or I don't think I was singing in the band, but I used to go there. Wow. That's really funny. I was trying to remember.
That's funny.
I've known you for so long, but we've never really traveled in the same circles. But
yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really wild. I think it might have been all the way back then. Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to keep reading, if you don't mind. Oh, and actually, I do have a question of my own, and it's regarding the Phat Band. It's such a personality, the Phat Band, and and you already said you started it, not really starting it, but more for this record label project.
Yeah.
Was there a point where you went, yeah, the Phat Band is this, and it's like a person all itself, and I'm going to give it, you know, legs and stuff. Did you like have that feeling like, yeah, you know, we're going to make the Phat Band, you know?
I had an epiphany. Well, it happened twice. The first time was our first gig, which was at Cal State Northridge. It was in that theater, I forget what it's called. And we didn't even know if we could get through 10 of these charts. The guys are like, I don't know if we can play this stuff. I said, well, come on, man up, you know? So we went on stage and played it. I remember, you know, Eric was there that night, Wayne Bergeron was there, but it really wasn't a band exactly yet. I didn't really have a concept for what a presentation would be, other than I had some charts. And getting up in front of an audience, I remembered what it was like, because I'd been working in the studios for probably a decade. No audience, just, you know, music by the pound. Write it, record it, next, you know. And so all of a sudden I'm back in front of an audience and feeling that. And I thought, wow, that's pretty fun. Nonetheless, it wasn't, that was say in 2000, because the first record came out in 2000. So around that, maybe the late 2000 was when that happened. But maybe around 2003 or 2004, it started to gather momentum and take up more than just, you know, being a hobby or a labor of love. It's like starting to take up more of half of my day was dealing with Phat Bands. Oh, we need uniforms. So we need new fronts. So we need stand lights. We need to get, you know, an agent. We get another agent. We need to, you know, book plane tickets, all the stuff you have to do. But the main epiphany happened prior to that. It happened in 1999, and I was on stage at Warner Brothers conducting an orchestra we were doing animation projects for Spielberg, Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs and those shows in the 90s. And I was involved in that from 95 through about 99. And it was an amazing thing. It was full orchestra every week. Spielberg had an edict. He goes, I want to score every one of these episodes with a live orchestra, no synthesizers. And he goes, no library music. We score every episode the same, fresh from the ground up. And so because of Spielberg, Warner Brothers had to pay for like a 40 to 50 piece orchestra. We probably had 3 sessions a week sometimes. And it was a golden era, and we were winning Emmys and making good money. And yet I'm up there conducting this one day, and I remember thinking, is this my life? Because what they would say to me all the time, they'd say, Gordon, my supervising composer was a guy named Richard Stone, who we lost to pancreatic cancer shortly after the gig ended. And Richard would say, Gordon, that cue was so amazing. However, next time, maybe a little less Gordon Goodwin, a little more Carl Stalling. And I would say, okay. Now, what am I doing that's making it Gordon Goodwin-y? Is it a counter melody here? Is it a passing chord? I just was writing music that sounded good to me. I was writing in the style of Carl Stalling, but it sounded like me. And so I started to think, is this what I'm supposed to do? I go to Warner Brothers and I write like they want, and then I go to Disney and I write the way they want, and then I just go and it's a noble profession for sure. But do I ever plant my flag? Because I was 40 and I had fell in love with Count Basie when I was in 7th grade. And I loved big bands. I knew big bands was my home, but I wasn't really doing much of it. So finally I decided I think I do need to make a commitment. So I started to write big band charts in the evening. Like I'd get home from work, and writing animation music is so time consuming. To write 2 minutes a day, that's a good day. And usually it would take me from 8 or 9 in the morning till midnight.
Wow.
With a dinner break and a lunch break, So it's a lot of work and all that. But on the nights that I had time, I'd write a big band chart. I started at 10 at night. I just worked for 2 or 3 hours and just write what I could. And then after a few months, I had about 5 charts, 6 charts, and went in and recorded them. And then it turned into this. So it was an intentional decision. I will tell you that the decision has brought balance to my life. I have an oasis that I can write music that sounds good to me. And for the most part, people don't tell me what to do. However, here's the way it's worked. So here is artistic integrity, and here is financial integrity. And as my artistic integrity rose, my financial integrity started to sink, because I'm putting tens of thousands of dollars into these records every year or two. You know how much these records cost? I mean, by the time you're paying all the union fees and you're paying, guest artists and you're paying, producers and everything, I mean, it's between $70,000 and $100,000 per record. I mean, so that's a problem. We've already touched on that. But despite that, it's brought a piece to my life, and it's got me to the point where I can say, this is me, and this is how I feel. And if you like it, thank you. If you don't like it, okay, but I still got to do it. And it took a lot of years for me to be centered enough to be able to say that.
Yeah, it's so amazing.
We all remember what it's. Yeah, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I was just saying it's really beautiful and amazing that you have created that, and you have it, and you know it. I mean,
I wish I would have got there in my 20s or my 30s.
Well, maybe.
I mean, you can't go back and redo it, but that's what I tell kids. I go, the sooner you can get that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're arrogant, because I don't want to be arrogant. I want to still retain my gratitude that I get to do this, and I think that I have. But you have to have a point where you acknowledge who you are.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes us decades to find out who we are.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, that was fabulous. Thank you. And I'm going to read a few more comments, because we have a lot of comments actually. And I like to kind of go from the earlier one, right? But Greg Karukas
Sure.
is here, and
Hey, Greg.
he said there's so much to be said about that, which I forget what that was because it was a while back, but I think it was after you were talking about Northridge. He said Pat Metheny always has a very different sounding walk-in music, and right after the show, it is silence for a while, and then a very slow fade up of another completely different style. My biggest pet peeve is that right after we finish a show, some sound guy pumps up some kind of music, signaling that it's time to get up and leave. Frequently, he also kills an encore by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating. It figures that Metheny would kind of have figured that out.
I know
how to frame his concert the right way.
I know.
You know,
so true.
Yeah. Thank you for that observation, Greg. Because I was watching a film the other. Well, I was watching this film Castaway with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Seen it a bunch of times. It just kind of flipped it on. I was just kind of watching it, kind of marveling at just he's on camera the whole movie, pretty much.
That's a great movie.
Al Silvestri did the score, and the score has a beautiful melody played by the oboe, mostly with strings, and it's a very, very sentimental melody. But there's no music during the entire time that Tom Hanks is on the island. It's kind of harkens back to Alfred Hitchcock. You know, he said something to Bernard Herrmann about, you know, they're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. There shouldn't be music because where's the orchestra? You know, and then the other guy said, well, where's the camera? Come on, you're going to do that. But they took this thing to, like, they tried to highlight Tom Hanks' complete isolation, nothing but nature sounds, right? While he's on the island. Then the minute he gets a sail and he's sailing away from the island to try to get back to civilization, then the music comes back in slowly, and then you hear that theme. The end credits of this movie, they play the theme, and it's at a slow, leisurely tempo, just so patient, and then it kind of just goes down to a low string chord, and then you hear these waves, and you hear this wind sound, and the credits are going by, you know, and then you hear the cello play the melody, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the basses, and then it just kind of goes down, and it's a combination of the orchestra and these organic elements.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful, you know. And I think about what Greg said about how Pat handles that kind of in the same way. There's some sort of an organic transition from the audience, from their lives and their cars and into the theater to this experience. We ease their transition to it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Really good to think about. Yeah.
You know, along those lines.
Yeah.
I've got a thing I'm doing, and it's about endings to songs. And the ending of a song when I write it is always the trickiest part for me, often, to find a way that ends it that's not cliched, or an ending I've done a million times before, but one that kind of pays off the song, and in a way that works not only on the record but works live. Because I've had a couple endings that work great on the record, then live, and the audience is like, what do we do? You know?
Yeah. So,
and I got me to thinking about endings, and I realized that there are contrivance that endings in music are. It's not something we experience in our lives. We don't have, okay, this is done. Usually it's more of a kind of a slow ramp down from an experience, you know, and then we transition to something else. You know, maybe you could argue there's only one real ending in our lives at the very end. Even that's a transition. I have we could talk a little bit about Sandy Nestico, who was the first arranger that I ever heard. When I was in 7th grade, I heard his arrangement for Count Basie, and it changed my life. Okay, so, and I've become friends with him over the years, and I have such pride in that. So Sammy is transitioning as we speak. He's in hospice at home, and I don't know you don't know how long that's going to take. Maybe it'll take months, maybe days. I don't know. But my friend that's been at his bedside tells me that he goes in and out of awareness. And I think that is sometimes how that final transition happens, right? I mean, so it's so great. I did a post because my friend called me and said, this is getting close. So I made a post on Facebook last week when I was in Mexico, and hundreds of people have gone there wishing Sammy. I said, let's wish him well, where he can feel the love. So everybody in the Phat Band recorded like a voice memo to him, some recorded videos. He listened to them. He's hearing how much people love him right now, because he really doesn't know. He doesn't know he's Sammy. I've told him 100 times, but he doesn't really know. So right now, at this point, it was so beautiful. Thousands of people on Facebook. On my page, you can see them. And we're trying to get those to him, and so he can feel that now. So anyway, transitions, endings are really a contrivance, because it doesn't ever go da 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 pow. That's just something we've gotten used to, and we accept certain things. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, and to try to find a way for maybe a new way to transition an audience. Of course, Pat Metheny, talk about him. He doesn't. A lot of times in his records, like The Way Up, I think was a record he had, and it was one long continuous piece of music. He had dividers in it, just for convenience, but really it was one long flowing thing. So
Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? That record was the same way.
Yeah.
It didn't have hard endings. The songs ended and then began another song. And one thing I always loved about Weather Report was when they were cooking along, right? And then they'd whap, and then silence, but everybody was going inside. And then all of a sudden, after, I don't know, 2 bars, 4 bars, God, I loved that feeling. Also, there's concepts of like when, I was teaching a student the other day who's a Tai Chi teacher, and the end of a movement is actually the beginning of the next movement.
Mm-hmm.
You're like this, and now ending a movement, and it's the beginning of another one. And
exactly,
it's really a nice idea for the flow and flow of life and flow of so many things, like what you're speaking of. You can really translate that idea into
and so I mean, so when we get to the end of our interview, I'm just gonna do this.
Okay. Oh
okay.
Sink down.
Just like over say the last 8 minutes, I'm gonna just slowly start to.
Okay, cool.
Maybe that'll be a concept that works.
I have a question from Marion. Gordon, have you ever done any more with the technology you used on Yesterdays with Art Tatum?
We did it. We did it with Oscar Peterson. After that, so we did the Art Tatum thing, and for those of you that aren't aware of that, basically it's I may have to go to wired headphones here in a minute. But we did it with we had a recording of Art Tatum that was actually a replication of a performance he did at the Shrine Auditorium in LA. He did it in 1939, and so it sounded like a 1939 era recording, pops and clicks and whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a company back then. They don't exist anymore. They're called Zenth, Z-E-N-P-H, and they had a piece of software that could take an audio signal and clean it up, and take the data and convert it into data you could put into one of those Yamaha Disc Clavier Pros. It's like a player piano thing, and then they could massage it. And then basically what they did, they put the piano on the stage at the Shrine in the same location that Tatum was, and they re-recorded his concert. But this time it's 96K, 24-bit, so it sounds amazing. So they gave me Tatum's track to Yesterdays, and then I wrote an arrangement based on what he played, and then the Phat Band recorded their parts. So in essence, we kind of had a recording of the Phat Band featuring Art Tatum. It was really amazing, and we did it at the Hollywood Bowl too. We had we put a disclaver out there. We all had headsets.
Yeah.
I conducted, and it played. We played along with the piano, and we had Tatum's Widow in the audience that night.
Wow.
It was so amazing.
Amazing. Wow.
And check it out. So I introduced her to the audience, and she's like, waving to the audience, and she's having the time. She comes back. She's in a wheelchair, and she had a caregiver. And the caregiver calls me over, and we took pictures, and we're having a nice talk. And the caregiver said, she was deep in dementia until about a week ago.
Wow.
And the thought of going to the bowl, hearing her husband's music, brought her out of it. Look at her. It was amazing. And of course, if you talk to people in that field, they can tell you about what music can do, to reach people, that have Alzheimer's. It was amazing. She passed away a month later. Oh. So it was such a great honor for us to be part of that. So anyway, after that, the same company had the rights to some Oscar Peterson music. Oh. So we decided, let's do it again. So we found a recording of On Green Dolphin Street that Oscar played. And he did it on a TV show that he hosted in Canada. And he would play it, tune with Ray Brown and Bobby Durham on drums. They play a little tune, and he goes, "This is Oscar, and welcome to the show. Here's On Green Dolphin Street." And he would play it, and then he goes, "All right, first guest is Dizzy Gillespie," and he would bring a jazz musician on and talk to them. So I had this On Green Dolphin Street performance from that TV show. No one ever heard it except for like a few people that watched the show that aired once or twice. So it was kind of new Oscar. So we were so excited. So we had permission from the estate. I wrote the arrangement, recorded the Phat Band parts. It's so amazing, freaking Oscar. And then his estate got new attorneys, and they said, "We don't think we want you to do this with Oscar's track. We don't think that he would have done this in real life. So we don't think that." So we had it. It was done. It was all mixed, ready to be released. Yeah. So I ended up talking to his wife, Kelly, who was a little considerably younger than he was, but so I had a nice talk with her, and I'm trying to kind of sell her on the idea. And I said, one of the things we notice is when we do a lot of work with kids, high school kids. They all know Chick Corea and they all know Herbie, and they don't know Oscar. So I'm hoping that we can maybe expose them through this track to his other music and keep his awareness, his legacy alive. She goes, "Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Oscar would ever play with the big band." I said, "Well, he did play, with all due respect, he did play with the big band. And I named a few records on it. I said, plus, how your husband loved technology and he loved cameras and tape recorders." She goes, "Yeah, he did." I go, "I think he would love this thing." Anyway, she was not be persuaded. So I had this track with Oscar and I couldn't use it. So even though legally I probably could have, because this was not Oscar playing. This was a replication of Oscar that sounds just like him, but it wasn't. It was a new recording. Legally, it was a new recording, and we could have used it. But I said, if they don't give it their blessing, like the Tatum estate did, we can't do it. So in the end of the day, I ended up playing the piano part myself. And this meant that I had to practice it every day. I had every morning for about 20 minutes, I'd practice this damn thing. It meant that licks that Oscar played with one hand, I took two, and but I got it, and so so that track came out on our record Life in the Bubble.
Wow.
But I won a Grammy Award for the arrangement, which really surprised me that happened.
Can we hear that?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, it's
where is that?
On the YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. On Green Dolphin Street, Big Phat Band.
Okay, let's go to YouTube. There's so many more comments, but you can see all the comments after if I don't get to them, which I probably won't because there's a lot. But anyway, let's go to YouTube and go to the Big Phat Band. Big Phat Band. And then go to, what am I going to?
On Green Dolphin Street.
Okay, so maybe right here on Green Dolphin Street. Uh-oh, I think he left. He got disconnected. On Green Dolphin Street. So I'm going to assume it says life in the bubble. He did mention that. So I'm going to.
Hello, baby.
Yeah, that was a nice ending.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of Oscar's ending, kind of my ending. Kind of.
Yeah. Let's see. We have, I mean, there are a bunch of, as I said, you can look at the comments later too. But let's see. Bob, Bob, sorry, Bob says hi. Bob Manelli, wait, Bob Marino. Hi. Sorry.
Bob Marino.
Bob Marino. And let's see. Let's see. Well, we do have a question. What comes next for the Big Phat Band? I think that's.
Yeah. We recorded a couple of songs remotely. And we've got them all mixed, ready to go, and we're working on videos for them. One is called The Reset, which is well, actually, one's called 6 Feet Away. The other's called The Reset. They're both kind of a comment on, the pandemic.
Yeah.
The Reset in particular is unlike anything we've ever done. It's very through composed, and there's really not a melody. Like I mean, I love melody. I really hang on to it, but this time I just wanted to free associate a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of Frank Zappa-esque in a way, and so it's I use a lot of technology, different some drum loops, and along with the live drums, and try some different things. It is kind of a reset, and a lot of people are doing that, at this time. So we're going to probably release those, depending on how long it's going to take to get the videos done. The videos are just so time consuming. I learned at the beginning of the quarantine, I got a Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a video editing program, and I kind of learned it. I mean, I've just scratched the surface, but I know enough to know that it takes a long time to really do the videos, edit them the way you want. And so we're getting ready to do that. I'm writing some new music for a new little Phat Band record. And then I have a lot of projects got wiped off, but I got one that came in, and I'm not allowed to say what it is, but it's a major, I'm very excited about it. It's a major international recording artist, and we're going to do a bunch of arrangements and record them in different cities across the world, pandemic permitting. And but the Phat Band, all of our gigs got wiped out, and we have some for 2021, and then a couple of those have got canceled. It's just so hard to know. I just saw a headline when my earphones died, so I had to sign on again. But I saw a headline when I was off that said, the next, I think they said the next 6 weeks to be the hardest in terms of the impact of the pandemic, at least in this country. So it'll be, I do know, like the Hollywood Bowl, we were supposed to do the Playboy Jazz Festival in June, and they canceled it, and they moved it to September, and then they canceled that. And at that time they said, don't look for much in 21. Even if we get a vaccine or get on the other side of this, the first of the year, it's going to take a season for performing arts centers and the like to kind of get fundraising, get things together in order to get back. It's interesting. Like I saw the Dodger game last night in that ballpark in Texas, and they had 10,000 people. Probably, I don't know if it's a 50,000 seat stadium, so they spread 10,000 people around. Can they do that at the bowl? The bowl is a 10,000 seat capacity about. So can they open it up like Disneyland is at 12%, 15% capacity? Is that going to be something we can do so we can at least, get the music business back to some extent? However, will a 15% capacity at the bowl be enough revenue to pay an artist to get up there? Will artists have to cut their fees down? I kind of think they might have to. And then the question will become, once we've cut our fees, how do we get them back up again?
Yeah.
Yep. So
interesting.
So yeah, next with the Phat Band, I mean, we definitely will. We had a little bit of a I'm probably not at liberty to say, but we had a little bit of a problem with our Grammy submissions. So that has delayed some of our plans, that and COVID, for some of the things we want to do. So, and the fact that we can't get together and play together at this point. I'm writing music. I'm trying to build for when the time comes that we can gather together again. We're ready and are able to pull it off.
Yeah. Are you, I mean, aside from, as we know, COVID stopped a lot of things, but in general, and before this, maybe even now, were you still writing for films and TV and teaching as well?
The teaching picked up with the COVID, actually. I had a friend named Caleb Chapman, who was a company called Soundhouse in Salt Lake City. And he started to do the math right away when he saw this coming. and started to make a transition to online learning. So I joined forces with him and taught 2 remote big bands. Once again, with students from all over the world. I had 6 kids from Australia. I had a couple of kids from Japan, from the UK, from all over the United States. And we had rehearsals just like this. And I would play them YouTube examples, and we would get their horn. We can't play together, but I could say, hey, Johnny, can you play bar 10 for me? And he'd play it. And I'd say, all right, now, and I'd say to someone else, now tell me what do you think he should do different? And I would try to establish a culture of interaction, even though it's difficult. They would record their parts at home, send them in, record video of themselves. And Caleb at his school had people to mix and edit the videos. And so a performance became a YouTube premiere, not put the band on the stage at the amphitheater. Now their performance is a YouTube premiere. Of course, grandma from Iowa can see it, can be there for it.
Yeah.
So there are advantages. The other thing that we can do, normally, if you're going to have a band and they're going to go to a jazz festival and play 4 songs. Now, let's say you have 3 really good drummers. So one of those guys gets to play 2 songs and the other just get to play 1. In this environment, I can have here. There you go. We have our little dog that we rescued.
Oh.
And she was in Mexico and she was pregnant on the streets. She was all dirty and disgusting. And some people found her, picked her up, took her across the border. She had no tags, took her to a rescue. And they she had her puppies. They gave her some medical attention, cleaned her up. And then we took her. So she's so cute. Her name is Scuba de Papa, because we thought we wanted to name her. I had a dog and named it Basie. And then we had another dog and named it Parker, after Charlie Parker. And we thought, well, maybe we should name it after a scat syllable. So we were like, Scuba de Papa. So we call her Scoobs or Scoobalicious, or Anyway, she just came in to say hi. Anyway, so what were we talking about? Who remembers?
Wait a minute. Let's see. I know I can remember. Hold on.
Well, we were talking about online teaching anyway.
Oh,
yeah. So I did a lot of that. I'm doing it still. And it's I think once again, once kids are able to go back to school, I think this will stay, because you got your 3 drummers. So now all 4 of them can play on every song in this environment. All it takes is for me to do 4 different mixes with a different drummer.
Yeah. With
soloists, the same thing. Usually I'd pick 2 or 3 solos or 2 solos on a song. Now anybody can solo. I just have to make alternate mixes. For the video, we pick 1 or 2 people and we shoot only video of them. But so there's a lot of flexibility to be able to have online teaching. There are a lot of things that you can't do that you would do normally. And I found that I have to be really focused. I have to be, like, we have rules for the kids. They have to sit this close. So I can see them, I can feel them, right? Yeah. I can read their body language. And I find that I have to project my energy to them, especially to get the kids that might be prone to sit in the back of the class,
Yeah.
But with online learning, once they can record their parts and send them to me, there's nowhere to hide. I can solo their part and listen. I can hear exactly how they're breathing, how they're phrasing, how their intonation is. I can give better comments on their performance than I could if they're just in the band room. So that's been a learning experience for me as well. And
that's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah,
it's great. I mean, probably the only problem sometimes is that the student has bad bandwidth or something,
The technology is a big problem, because not all students, most of them have phones.
Yeah.
So with a phone, you can record video and you can record yourself, even if it's not as good as a good microphone and everything you would need. But I think as we go, schools are going to have technology budgets to give students some capability there. Yeah. But you're right. It is an issue for people that don't have adequate internet, and now they can't even go to Starbucks and get online. They can't go to the library.
and get online. So hopefully we could start to, fill those gaps in.
Yeah,
so everyone can.
I have a group, a 7-piece a cappella vocal improv group. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt. Fish to Birds. This is where we got our name. It's the Escher painting. It's like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right.
So, but we've had bad luck with being in COVID because, what we'll do is somebody will start like a groove or something, and then somebody else will come in, harmonize with it, or do an, like kind of a crossover groove. We're very subtly doing things. And so with the latency, it's pretty impossible to do that precise thing. We can do other weird things, and I keep thinking, if one of us could get some editing chops together, we can record it still would be a different thing, but we could record and then float it in. I don't know. I'm thinking for, looking for something we do,
Yeah, clearly, getting your editing, your chops up is mandatory. But you know what I've been doing in order to simulate interaction, especially, and I've been doing this for years anyway. If we go and we're tracking a song in the studio, I'm playing the piano part, and then sometimes we'll have a live solo in the studio, but not always, because sometimes I'm not sure who's going to play on what song, because I really balance that out really carefully. I want to make sure I have the right guy and that everyone gets a little piece of it. So, so sometimes a guy will overdub his solo later, and then I'll go in and change my piano part and react to his solo.
Yeah.
So it feels like we played it at the same time.
Yeah.
So there are things like that we do online that kind of can help give that illusion of interaction.
Yeah. There's a Brazilian singer, Monica Samaso, who she does a lot. Every week she does these duos, and I have to believe it's in the same space, but maybe different rooms or something, because they react too much to each other. There's every now and then there's somebody who it's really obvious they sent the track, but there's something going on there that I don't know about, and I'm pretty sure that they're in the same place. I have a few questions from Anthony Cucina. He said first of all, he's really enjoyed your Big Phat Band play along series for drums.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
He's a drummer.
Thank you. Yeah.
He'd like you. His first question is, would you please talk about some of the things you're focusing on these days to improve your playing, if so?
Oh yeah. Well, for me, I've always been a part-time player, to be true, and it started once my composing career started to get opportunities, and I realized that there are a lot of really good saxophone players and good piano players that are committed to that without jumping all over the place like I do. But I think that when I realized that composing might have been my main contribution to the world, I was more judicious with my time on my instruments. Now, I wanted to be good enough to still play in the band and keep up with those monsters that are in those chairs. So for me, it's a disciplined thing where I usually get about 30 minutes a day on my saxophone, unless I'm deep in another project. And if I'm working, 12-hour days, then I won't be able to do it. Right now, my tenor's in its case because I was just gone for 5-6 days. And I know I'm going to have to climb back on. And because I was actually really good. I had practiced. For me, it takes is about a half hour a day to keep in touch with the instrument.
Yeah.
I will say that long tones are the most valuable thing. And it's counterintuitive because you feel like you want to play fast licks and practice and that. Long tones improve everything. They improve your intonation, they improve your breath support, and they improve, for me, my relationship between my fingers and my tongue. And I can't exactly explain how that is. They're exhausting to do. And I have an exercise I do where I will play a note as soft as I can, and I hold it, and I in one breath, and then I crescendo as loud as I can, and then back down again. And I time myself and see how long that process takes.
Wow.
And I try to build on that. And it's an exhausting process, as far as piano goes. And I told you about my experience with Phil Woods, where they had to correct my embouchure.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing with my piano playing, because just like with a saxophone, I dove in and just started to go because I wanted to get to the music, and I never learned fundamentals. And so by the time I was about 30, and I was having bad pain, especially in my right wrist. So I used to have to take ice water, and I would ice it on the gigs just to keep the pain down.
Yeah.
And I got a gig with Johnny Mathis,
Uh-huh.
and I was conducting and playing piano for him. And I had to play this West Side Story kind of concert style piano part. And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to do it. So I went to a piano teacher named Mark Richmond, who was teaching at UCLA. Actually, Lisa, my first wife, she was studying with him.
Oh.
And so I said, Mark, can you teach me? He goes, oh man, you're too old. I said, come on. He goes, no, your cartilage is all formed. I can't help you. I said, I'm begging you. He goes, all right, tell you what, I'll teach you. But he goes, turn around. So I turn around, and he hits a note on the piano. What's this note? I go, G. He goes, what's this note? C sharp. All right, what are these two notes? And then he goes, and then he played like a cluster. And I picked out all the notes, and he goes, okay, all right. You got good ears. All right, I'll take you as a student. So I said, all right. So he goes, as he worked with me, he realized that, he goes, Gordon, you're not breathing. When you're going to play a passage, you go like this. And I would hold my breath and just bear down. And I had no idea that I was doing that. He goes, no wonder, you need oxygen in your body. He goes, so he taught me that, like, as a pianist, like if I'm going, I could have my hand go in a circular motion with the music, to have my body flow a little bit, with the shape of the music. He taught me also some strength exercises that I still do to this day, where I will like take and I'll go do 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 do, and I press down on all 5 notes, and then I take and I'm holding down the 4 fingers, and I go with my thumb do 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 do. I'm pressing down with every finger. Do 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 do. 3rd finger, 4th finger, which is the hard one, and then now go, like 13 times, and I would do that with both hands, and like he taught me about building the strength in here, so I wasn't putting strain on my wrist. Saved my life as a pianist, and I don't have pain to this day. And but typical of me, I had to go back and learn it in the nick of freaking time before I would have lost the gig because I couldn't do it. So those are exercises that I do to this day. But one of the things that's been really good for me is my radio show, which I mentioned earlier, because I'm always looking for new music. I play Miles and Count Basie and, the masters, but I'm also looking for new people. And so it's like what we used to do. We go to Tower Records and we'd look through the bins, just look for new music. It's like those days. But now I'm looking on YouTube and trying to find, people that fit the kind of aesthetic that I'm doing on the show. So being exposed to new music is vital for me. And that's what keeps me inspired. I
want to ask you along those lines, have you ever heard of a guest I have coming up, a French piano player, Franck Amsalem?
I have not. Let me write it down though, because that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Franck Amsalem.
Yeah, Frank is Franck, Franck, and Am Salem, Sallem. This guy, I forget why I stumbled on him, but really, really wonderful.
I will check him out. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's like you'd love him. He's really a monster and great, just great, really beautiful. Yeah, there's also a guy I can't remember right now, but I'll try and remember, a Brazilian pianist that I came across too. Who? Oh, let's see. Did I write? Let's see. Do, 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 do. Eduardo, I think this is it. Eduardo Balthar. Is that him? Yes, I believe so. Wait a minute. Is that him? Beautiful. Da da da. Oh no, he's a guitar player. No, that's not the same guy, but he's wonderful too.
You know, I found a couple of musicians for this World Jazz Orchestra that I'm leading.
Yeah.
And I found a bass player from India. Her name is Mohini Day. And she's like Marcus Miller. She's amazing bass player. And I have a drummer from Japan, Senri Kawaguchi, 23-year-old drummer. She is just badass. I'm so excited, you know, to kind of meet, you know, these young musicians and get them involved.
Yeah.
It just gives you such a good feeling to watch, you know, the legacies just being passed down, you know, but, you know, by people like that. So, and once again, you know, the fact that we're able to play with musicians from all over the world and interact with them, and how you can have them on your show. And that's really, the world's getting smaller, for sure, for better, for worse. It's getting smaller.
That's great. Oh, very funny, Roland. He said you should check out Larry Golding's friend. I think he's talking about Hans.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let's see. What are your views on contemporary arranging now compared to how it used to be done in the Basie Mancini era? Arrangers like Alan Bylock and Alan Ferber.
Alan Baylock, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, these are guys that learned the principles of Sammy Nestico and Frank Foster, Neil Hefti, the people that wrote those great charts for the Basie Band. I soaked myself in that idiom too, but I was always influenced by pop music, even back then. You know, my first musical love was Herb Alpert. And when I was in 4th grade, Tijuana Brass was my jam, man. I love those guys. And parenthetically, about 2 weeks ago, I was outside. We had some roses out there. I was kind of watering the roses because it was so hot, you know, trying to keep them from dying. And the phone rings, and I look at it, and it says Malibu. And I didn't recognize the number, and I almost didn't pick it up. And I said, "Hey, it's Gordon." And he goes, "Hi, Gordon. This is Herb Alpert." I said, "You're going to have to give me a minute." I said, because it's not every day that you get a phone call from the very man that inspired my first musical inspiration in 4th grade. I go, "Herb, the only non-music job I've ever had in my life is I used to mow the grass for my neighbors. I would get $1 a yard, and I saved up $12, and I bought the Tijuana Brass songbook. And then I called some friends, and I put my first band together in 4th grade, playing Tijuana Taxi and the Spanish Flea." And he's like, "Oh my God, that's great." He goes, "Well, I just wanted to call you and tell you I really love the band. I love what you're doing, and I just, you know, want to tell you I really appreciate what you're doing." And I'm like, well, I'm telling you, it was, and we talked for about an hour. The most wonderful guy. This is a man who, you know, his philanthropic endeavors are incredible. You know, all the money he spent to help support music over the years, and never mind that, you know, what A&M Records, the legacy of that company, and all that. So, I mean, I said, "No, I go, you made a mistake, man. I'm going to be fanboying you hard, you know." And so, anyway, so that was really a thrill. But so even though I didn't love rock and roll, I did have it in my body when I was learning to write. So, and I also got an affinity for melodies and hooks.
Yeah.
Kind of like Quincy.
Yeah.
I think Quincy Jones is a good example of a guy who understands, you know, traditional Count Basie era big band writing, but also incorporated pop music, you know, in like Walking in Space, that record he did. So you could start to see his transition, you know, where with those kind of production techniques, and where he would just write dun, da, da, da,
Yeah.
da, da. He's not going dun, da, 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 da. He's not doing what we might have done to interpolate those melodies a little bit. He's just laying it down. So for me, that influenced me a lot in terms of, I mean, I love Thad Jones. I love that kind of writing where it's just, it has a lot of depth and complexity and levels to it. But I also like groove and I like melody. And so I think that to answer the question about contemporary writing, for me, it's that's an example of where you balance the best of both of those worlds, the best of the way the contour of those charts went, but also with a contemporary sensibility in terms of groove and melody, and innovation in terms of not having to be predictable.
Yeah.
I definitely love Baylock and Ferber. And Fred Sturm is a writer has passed on that was also onto some new things. It's funny about style, because one of the things that Herb said to me about the Phat Band was, he goes, you might want to think about it. As much as I love what you do, think about going for a consistency of sound. And I go, so do you mean? Because, we'll go from a Count Basie thing to like a country thing to a funk thing, like what we played at the start of the show, with all those things. Now, to me, it all kind of sounds like the Phat Band because of the musicians, because of the continuity of the writing. And he goes, yeah, he goes, there's just something that is a little bit, it's a lot to chew. Whereas if you had a continuity of sound, and that's the best way I can describe it. He actually used a few other phrases, and I wrote them down because I really I was curious about, his impression about it. It might be, he may be coming from a marketability angle.
Yeah.
Because if you think Tio on a brass, you hear that sound right away.
Yeah.
If you think Count Basie, you hear that sound right away.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you think Miles Davis, you hear the sound of his horn, but then you got Miles Davis Sketches of Spain, Miles Davis Kind of Blue, Miles Davis Bitches Brew.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of different things. The sound of Miles' trumpet is the commonality, I think, between all those sounds. Yeah. So it's a fascinating thing. All I can say is that when I write music, if I'm writing in the style of Tower of Power, I believe it. I love it. I am all in with that. And then if I'm writing in the style of John Williams, I'm all in. Like we have a song on the new record called The Gordian Knot, which is very evocative of John Williams and kind of a combination of jazz and classical and filmish kind of music. And we have a string section on the track as well. So you could go around the mulberry bush trying to determine, what's right. And I think that each of us as artists and composers have to make that call for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
We got to figure out what we like and what sounds good to us. That's what matters.
I would like to hear a little bit of the Gordian Knot, if you don't mind, because I was going to ask for something different, a little different. And
that'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're the Gordian Knot. Knot. All right, the Gordian Knot right here. Or I think this is it.
There it is.
gorgeous. The only reason I'm stopping is because we have a little bit of time left, and I'd like to talk a little more.
Sure.
And people can. That is gorgeous. And
Thank you.
I have to say something funny, which is the picture of you on that cover right there.
Yeah.
It's so this song. It's like
I
love that picture. That's great.
Yeah. It only took 50 shots to get that one, to get the right look.
Right.
We did that photo shoot at 10 at night. We were doing a summer jazz camp in Pasadena all day, and then we had a concert. We did the concert, then we went to this guy's studio in Altadena, and the whole band there, and it takes a long time to get all the shots we need. You know, we need all the saxes. Okay, now saxes with your horns. Now, plus we had that rope for the so now hold the rope and hold it in interesting ways. And then like, saxes, you guys are done. Actually, no, because we needed to save everybody for a big group shot. So you guys take a break for an hour. It was a late night.
You know, I do hear your linear writing actually, and I love that. When I teach scatting to people, I tell them about linear. I say, great, you have a great idea, wonderful, and another great idea, good, but there's a lack of connection and content.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on this, flow, then you can look where you're going, and it directs the flow of the creativity in a whole different way. I really hear that. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting too, because remember you talked earlier about weather report.
Yeah.
And they're playing and then they stop.
Yeah.
But internally, the flow's still going.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things I learned, especially for orchestral writing, you can't rely on the rhythm section to keep your pulse going. And that's a little bit of a crutch that sometimes us big band writers will just used to them going ding, 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 ding. And we do our stuff on top of it. And even when we drop the flow somehow in our writing, there's still a ding, 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 dinging, and it's okay. With an orchestra, you don't have that. You've got to get the rhythmic pulse that is built into the music itself. And it's a fascinating process, because I started off in big band world, then I little by little got into writing for orchestras, and I learned what worked and what didn't. And if you look at the music of somebody like John Williams, you'll see that he'll have a propulsive element. It might be buried in the orchestration. It might be the violas that might be going doon 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 doon, or whatever. And it might not even be completely audible, but it'll be something you feel.
Yeah.
As the rest of the orchestra might be sustaining notes or whatever. So
that's fascinating, actually. And it's almost like you're writing as a member. Let's see, how do I put this? Like if you have a regular band, one would hope that each member is aware of the pulse and each feeling the pulse and the continuity of that.
Yeah.
So what you're describing, it's kind of like writing from everybody's point of view in that. Does that make sense?
Certainly. Yeah. We've been fortunate to have a lot of continuity in our personnel over the years.
Yeah.
People leave, and once in a while people are asked to leave for various reasons. But it's always made us better.
Yeah.
It's always made us better. Even when somebody had left the band, I thought, man, how am I going to replace him? And then all of a sudden, some young kid comes up, and I've been a fan of the band since I was in, 6th grade. We're like, oh, great. But then he's the next piece of it. And it's funny how age is not a thing when we're playing together.
Yeah.
We don't think about it. We just play together and hang and everything. So, but yeah, I think you're right. And it is a culture of, especially for horn players, to when they're playing. And I first became aware of this through Jerry Hay, and I was working with him a little bit, and he was really helpful for the first Big Phat Band record. He was there. He played in the trumpet section, kind of helped. He didn't really get a producer credit, but he was so valuable, because if he's playing a phrase, instead, say the phrase is right? Now you can do it that way. Or you can really push your air So there's a difference in the intensity and the airspeed, especially for, that was a swing figure, but for like a funky figure, you know, it's like even when you're not playing, your ear is just like tight, ready to go. I'm sure it's with singers the same thing, you know. And so everybody in the Phat Band, they're tanked up. When they're playing those funk licks, they are just tanked up. And it starts with Wayne Bergeron, our lead trumpet player, who insists on the right sound, on the right phrasing, on the phrasing on the right side of the beat. If we're playing the Tower of Power thing, we're not going to be laying back like bass C. We're going to put it where it's supposed to go. Yeah. And so it requires everybody to have the right stylistic understanding and to listen and follow each other.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're coming to the end. It's actually been 2 hours. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it's been really fun, really fun. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it.
You're welcome. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful comments, and as I said, you can check it out, and I'll send you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just been it's been really a satisfying conversation. And
thank you.
Your points of view, and it's intriguing to me a little bit that we didn't say, oh, so where did you grow up and what did you do? And, you know, because I prefer a conversation like this, you know, where we just get into a conversation, one thing leads to another, and we hear about your whole history, or we don't hear about your whole history. How can we?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. So we're talking about the contrivances of endings and even the beginnings, but we didn't have a tradition. You didn't go, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today, my guest is, you know, we didn't do that. We just went in. But both you and I felt it and just did it. And you're right. People get what they need. They can go and find out whatever they need to know about both of us if they really wanted to.
Exactly. And now, are you going to do this?
I was going to do it, but now I think I shouldn't have tipped it off. Now it'll feel fake. So.
Well, somebody did ask, how do we hook up with your show?
Oh, the radio show?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on KJazz, which is, if you have an FM radio still, it's 88.1 FM, but it's also streaming online on iHeart and all those. Their website is jazzandblues.org. My show's on Saturdays from 10 to 12. They repeat it the next Friday night at 11 p.m. and they archive it. Finally, I kind of was on them to start archiving these shows. We can't stream them like a podcast because KJazz doesn't own the rights to all the songs we play. Oh. So the FCC has guidelines. They can archive them for 2 weeks at a time. So my show airs on Saturday, then it airs again on Friday, and then it goes up online for 2 weeks, and then we replace it with the next one. So, but so it's a lot of fun. I mean, I grew up listening to that radio station and listening to Chuck Niles and and all those guys, and so it's a real honor for me to be a small part of that whole process.
Yeah, that's really nice. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'm going to I'll send you people I find, because I'm finding some really interesting people. I'll have to look at the show to see what your parameters are, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, the parameters are basically music of content, music of artistic honesty, music, when I say content, you know, just people well-informed, you know, and maybe that means you studied, or maybe that means you just know, like Jacob Collier, he just knows. He studied in college for a while, you know, but he obviously has a thing, and he, you know, and without regard to stylistic boundaries. So I played Bruno Mars on the show once because I go, that tune's groovy, you know. I got some people that were like a little upset. One time I played Streisand, and I said, come on, this is a Alan and Marilyn Bergman song. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful chart. She's not a jazz singer, but she sings good. And so I remember the Bruno chart. I had to talk to the station manager. He goes, well, we just don't do that. I said, well, why not? I go, there's no profanity. He doesn't say Uptown Funk kind of F you up. It's funk you up. I said, it's got a burn-in vocal. It's got a burn-in horn part. It's got a great groove. And I said, look, you want to start pulling that thread? Maybe we should, you don't play Charlie Parker because he was a junkie. Yeah. Do you not play Stan Kenton because his daughter wrote a book saying that he molested her? Yeah. How about Frank Rosalino? He shot his own kids. Do you not play Frank? I mean, you start pulling that thread, and he goes, "Okay, yeah, you're right. Go ahead."
What's the name of your show?
It's called Phat Tracks with Gordon Goodwin.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta pound that brand in.
Thank you. And I came across, I'm just going to send you some people. I came across a woman, Brazilian composer, arranger, who's extremely, I guess, well-known and works a lot, but I had not heard of her. I think her name is Clarice Adas or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to send you her name.
Send me everything. I would love to be exposed to all the great new talent out there.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, Cathy. Great to talk to you and see you again. It's been too long.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this show. It's definitely a very needed asset for all of us.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a great day.
Okay. You too.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
And I just want to tell people tomorrow is Ed Neumeister, who is an amazing trombone player, world renowned. He's done a lot. Ed Neumeister. And then the next day is actually a bit straying off of jazz to kind of Americana folk. Evie Ladden, who I was introduced to her through her husband, Keith Terry. And Keith Terry is a body percussionist who I'm going to have on the show as well. But I was in a class of his, and it was really amazing. You know, this kind of all this stuff, which I obviously haven't practiced. But over the years, occasionally I would take a class, and he does actually give classes online on Thursdays, which originally was why I took Thursdays off. So body percussion with Keith Terry. But anyway, last year he appeared with his wife, Evie Ladden, who, wow, she's like a singer, personality, composer, guitarist, a mofo on the banjo, and an amazing clogger. You know, clogger, like with clogs, Anyway, she's really amazing, and she's a longtime professional. And so that's Wednesday. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Well, Saturday, October 24th, I'm going to do a small set in a tribute to Jazz Musicians Unite Against Racism. And this is going to be put on by Leroy Downs from Just Jazz and the World Stage, which is here in LA, which was originally started by the drummer Billy Higgins and many, many years ago. And so we're going to be part of a program, Trevor Ware and Peter Smith and myself. So that's Saturday evening. I don't know where we are in the lineup. And then just as a comment on the following week, an amazing pianist who people from LA know, especially those of you who are Blue Whale attendees, Vardan of Sepian. He's an amazing player. I've recorded with him and worked with him. And then the next day is Gary Fukushima, who's an educator, a writer for Downbeat, a great piano player. He's one of my favorite piano players. He's especially playing with him as a duo. Well, we have a band called The Moment, which does not have a bass player. It's Gary and Brad Dutz on percussion, Jeff Richmond on guitar, and Chuck Manning on sax. That band is very abstract, but we have form, but it's kind of abstract. And Gary is just an amazing player. His rhythmic sense and his harmonic sense. He's just an amazing and a nice person. And then the next day, a great violinist who I met when I booked a room called Bar Fedora for several years. And I booked Oscar Hernandez, the great Latin pianist and band leader. And he had this woman violinist, I forget how to pronounce her first name correctly, Dairen Santa Maria. So she's going to be on next week. But anyway, we're going to just keep going. And I'm sorry I dropped down from 6 days, but now I actually am accomplishing very unusual things. So It all worked out good. So I will see you tomorrow with Ed Newmeister. Have a great day, you guys. And shout out to jazz singers. Check out jazzvoice.org if you want to learn some cool stuff.